Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, I hope that you're doing good. Everything is going well, and hey, you're ready for some Computer America, where today on the program, we have a guest, and today's guest, we'll get to them in the first part of the show, second part of the show, computer and technology news. Looking at our stories here, we have about 18 different stories so far, and we're not going to be able to get to them all, but we have a lot to talk about, and but we also have a lot to talk about with our guest, and our guest today is going to be xOps, and if you haven't heard about them, we're going to quickly outline DevOps and all that kind of thing, how it applies to to IT workflow and things like that, but we're also going to tackle another very, very obvious problem in tech culture in general, which, I was just thinking about this before the show. Who better to explain this to you guys than two white men? But I promise it's going to be a good conversation, and it has, it has a lot of very valid points to make. And joining us in just a moment will be Mr. Larry Gordon, the CEO and co-founder of xOps. But before we do that, computeramerica.com, that will have everything, including the show notes. The show notes will include a link to our guest website, any articles that we talk about, any videos that we show, any products that we discuss, anything like that will be at computeramerica.com after the program. Also, if you want to check out our guest website, just, while we're talking about it, you can, of course, head on over to xOps.IT. And yeah, you can definitely find more information there. Or, this is my recommendation, sit back and relax, because again, we have the CEO and founder here to talk about this, well, co-founder here to talk about all of this. And so why don't we go ahead and just jump right in. Go to the website, social media, articles, blah, blah, blah. Let's go ahead and jump into this. So as I said before, xOps, if you haven't heard about them, this is going to be the place to listen to everything that they do, and some very important topics that we have discussed here on the show. And I think that after discussing it for years on end, the conversation is starting to shift, and probably in a little bit healthier way. And I'd really like to have Larry in on this as well. So Larry Gordon, CEO and co-founder. Larry, welcome on to Computer America. How you doing?
Great, Ben. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. And yeah, you sound great, and thank you for coming on. Before we get started with any of the anything with diversity and anything with that line of conversation, I want a quick overview of xOps. When was it founded? What is its mission? And then your background. Have you always been in high technology, or what is your background?
Sure. So I founded xOps 3 years ago. We're just right at our 3-year anniversary. And my co-founder is in Sri Lanka. Basindu runs the operation in Sri Lanka. So we're a global organization. We're still very small. We're an IT services firm. And that means that we help our customers, which are generally smaller and mid-size organizations. So a mid-size organization has a couple billion, few billion in revenue, and sort of not quite in the global 1,000. We don't really work too much with the really big enterprises. So banks we work with will be mid-sized banks, regional banks, and media companies like AMC Networks. Not not Disney, but see. So we founded the company. My background was part of the original leadership team at Cognizant Technology Solutions, which is a huge IT services company now, 240,000 employees. And Capgemini, a lovely, very large IT services company. And when I was deciding what to do next after selling some companies, I went to my customers from those big IT services companies and to my friends who had become CTOs in kind of the New York to Chicago, DC triangle, and geographically. And I said, what's new? What's next? They said, Larry, we're running engineering operations, software engineering operations, and we're CTOs and we're entrepreneurs and we need DevOps help. And I said, that's a great idea, because it's something we saw at the big companies that, they couldn't quite get right, because DevOps is about lean and small and agile and small teams and not having to have a lot of engineers doing a lot of work in silos. And so I started an IT services company. We help those companies, mostly in the pharma business, financial services, media, manufacturing. I think mostly because those are some of the earliest adopters of DevOps, the tech, of course, the tech companies. And also we're in New York, we're in New Jersey. So, that's the nature of the companies around here.
And if you don't mind, if I could jump in here real quick, DevOps, for those of us who don't know what DevOps is, talk about how that's different than, or what is DevOps and how is it different than traditionally things were developed?
Sure. So these customers needed help with DevOps because they were moving their applications to the cloud. So the cloud in general, and we mean public cloud, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, could be private cloud as well, big data center. They're moving applications to the cloud. They're building new applications that are cloud-based. They're doing this because they don't have to make big incremental investments in hardware and data centers, and they can deploy the applications faster, cheaper, higher quality, using DevOps processes and DevOps engineers. So what a DevOps engineer does is he or she says, oh, I'm working with this application development team. I'm going to build them an automated pipeline, all software, infrastructure as code. Instead of taking a disk and putting it in a data center, it's all software. You can create a server, you can destroy a server just in software. In a Microsoft data center. But it takes a special kind of engineer, and it takes special tools, and it takes special processes, all of which are new. So a DevOps process and DevOps engineers make sure applications get deployed better. They monitor the applications to see if they are broken or not functioning correctly. If that's happening, they fix it. So they operate the infrastructure. They deploy applications. They govern release management and make sure things are released quickly. It used to be, Ben, that a company would release a new version of their application every 6 months, and everyone would go crazy. Over the weekend, it was getting deployed and hoping it didn't break and no one noticed. And that's how they do things, called waterfall. Nowadays, our clients, they release new versions of their application 2 or 3 times a day. And people would notice, say, for example, on their phone, the phone gets updates. That's the application being updated. It happens pretty frequently. So DevOps is about releasing small batches of code instead of big batches of code, doing it more frequently. And if it breaks, fixing it right away instead of waiting for someone else to fix it. That's DevOps. It's a new way driven by cloud adoption to deploy applications.
Which obviously sounds like a much better way to do these things, because obviously everything is, like you say, connected to cloud systems and networks. And I guess security patches don't you don't have to be wait for security patches for weeks or months on end for an entire new release. I guess new features can be added very, very quickly. This seems to be, I think, the normal way. I guess most people would consider applications are running today, right?
Yes, it's becoming the standard way of doing it. Of course, there's still big enterprises that have old applications, some of which should be done this way, some of which are doing just fine the way they are. But this is the way all the new engineers are doing stuff.
I gotcha. So with so of course, with that being said, I think now we have a pretty good idea of DevOps and their responsibility and how they kind of influence these applications that we all use. Many of our questions today are going to focus around diversity in DevOps. And before we even really kind of drill down to DevOps in particular, I don't know how closely you've been kind of monitoring the numbers lately. I know that this has been a topic over the years here on Computer America about how, let's face it, tech, Silicon Valley, many kind of STEM in particular careers are dominated by white male employees. Those are the people getting the degrees. Those are the people definitely getting hired. And you're looking at the racial and diversity background. It skews heavily in a direction. So I wanted you to kind of outline for our listeners the state of diversity in tech before we even get to DevOps in particular.
So, I don't exactly know the numbers of percentages of white males versus other underrepresented groups in tech. It's getting better clearly as people make efforts, but we've certainly noticed that, there's our pool of potential employees, our current employees, and, kind of the existing employees out there. So what we've done is we've kind of turned it to our advantage. So if you think about the book's Moneyball, has nothing to do with DevOps, but by Michael Lewis, has to do with finding talent at a appealing cost point and fitting it into a system that works. And if you think about some of the work Dan Ariely has done with, how people can be irrational in making decisions, bias is irrational. And so what we've done is we need good engineers. And we've found that it's easier for us because of our corporate culture and that we're small and nimble and the way we are and that we help people with training, that we can attract underrepresented groups easier than the classic Silicon Valley engineer. So we're not Google, we're not Microsoft, we're not SAP. We're a little guy, we're scrappy, but we found, like the Oakland A's in Moneyball, you're a baseball fan, we found we can address clients' needs for platform engineering and infrastructure as code by attracting and training underrepresented groups easier. It's easier for us to hire those people like that, than engineers that experience no bias in many technology groups, whether that's a Silicon Valley type company or a large enterprise with an IT.
And I guess this would be a good time to kind of ask the question, why is having a diverse workforce, kind of important? Because obviously it's the population is made up of many different kinds of people. Certain fields don't reflect that accurately. What are some problems that you can run into when you don't have that diversity and in your workforce?
So what our groups do is we solve problems and we look for ideas from many places to solve those problems. The problems could be user experience. The problems could be purely how code runs. The problems often are on how people collaborate together and how groups of developers and ops people and DevOps people and infrastructure people, they need to communicate. They need to have blameless postmortems when something goes wrong, because something's always going wrong with code.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. And people from diverse backgrounds bring different points of view, different experiences, different ways of approaching problems, and understanding that there are people in the room or on the Zoom call with differing ways of looking at things. And how are we going to use those different inputs to quickly isolate and solve a technology problem that most likely has to do with, did people collaborate on the code correctly, as opposed to, we don't know what code to write. So it's about finding those spaces in people's minds where the answers lie, and people have to be open and comfortable. And that's a tough culture change for a lot of companies, but we're young, and that's what we built ourselves around. So, that's what we look for. So that's how the underrepresented groups and the diverse groups help us solve problems, technical problems for customers.
Yeah, it's and we've seen that with many companies that the much larger ones, they start out with a very exclusive group of friends, people, whatever. They start a small company, it rapidly expands, and just because hey, when you're expanding that fast, you don't really vet, and you just kind of say friends, family, colleagues, other classmates, things like that, and it kind of branches out from there. And obviously, it didn't start with the most, kind of representative group of people. So when it expands that quickly, it seems like it doesn't expand equally in all directions, I guess.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's certainly something that especially over the past couple of obviously here in America, there's a lot going on with minorities in law enforcement, and a huge conversation, and of course the riots that that happened just a couple of weeks ago. There's that conversation going on at the same time that we're having this conversation here, and they really aren't that disconnected from one another. It's just diversity in tech is it needs to improve, but also diversity in many other fields and many other career paths need to kind of happen as well. We have a question here. What are common misconceptions that people have, and how do we combat these misconceptions and communicate them more effectively?
So there's an openness to that question.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I get my choice a little bit. So the misconception that I want to address is that you're doing your part to enhance diversity by going out and hiring someone who's someone from an underrepresented group.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not good enough. That person and those people that you have to continue to hire, they're not a marketing tool, and they are an engineer in my world who needs to be supported, whose career needs to be accelerated, who needs increased skill improvement, increased leadership improvement. They need a mentor that actually helps them. They need their engineers. They need space. They need autonomy. So, a couple of things that we've done is we said, well, we want to find these people. We want to hire these people. We want to train these people. The culture has to support them, and we want to retain them.
Yeah.
So retention is a big deal. And the misconception is, you've kind of done your job if you're kind of halfway through that cycle. Retention is about having people do meaningful work and allowing them to have meaningful lives. In fact, some of our engineers took off to go, join demonstrations and presentations where they felt comfortable that they wanted to, have their voices heard and hear voices. And we make sure people have mentors that are addressing their particular need and coaching them on what they need to do in their career. So I think we're good in retention that way. And, of course, you need good engineering work because that's what the clients want too.
Right. Yeah. There. And there's a lot there that I've never really thought about, because when you hear about these diversity hires, I think that a lot of people get hot under the collar because they kind of feel like they're being passed over, because they don't fit what the diversity hire is kind of looking for. And that, what you're saying is, it's not about, we're not taking you because you're white. We're taking this person because they're a good engineer and they bring a new viewpoint. Like they have a little bit something different. It's you're looking at this as like they have the skills and they're eligible for the job. It's not just because they get the job because, hey, they happen to be, of another ethnicity. You're still looking for people who are qualified.
And for us, it's LGBTQ and it's handicapped people. And it's, there's a lot of different pools we have to choose from to find really good engineers.
That is such a tricky way to go about this. And I obviously you said that you were a small group of developers, and I'm sure that the hiring practices of the much larger companies. If you magically had their ear right now, and you could talk to the Amazons, the Microsofts, the Apples, the Adobes, the whatever, the huge companies of the world, and you could say that your hiring practices, they need to change. They need to change in X way. What have you found running your company, hiring your developers? What worked well for you? And you could say this will work well for you, larger entity.
It's one of the meetings. I do 2 meetings a week actually on this, and it's one of the parts of the company that I love the most. We have this great intern program, and it started with a couple of interns, and then we hired them. And now they run the intern program, and they're engineers and marketing people. And, it's like, that's how I want it. I want, I don't want to run stuff. I want to listen to the meeting and see what the new guys are, talking about. So with this intern program, and, we're a small company, so it's like 2 or 3 people to start, and then we're 3 years old. So now we're in our 3rd class, the pandemic class. We have 16 interns from Sri Lanka and the US, 10 in the US, 6 in Sri Lanka, a very mixed group. And we were able to get them because, a lot of the hotshot software developers, engineers, Texas, Illinois, Stanford, MIT, they want to go do internships for Microsoft and Amazon, et cetera. And they're going to go to the campus and it's going to be a great summer. And our internship program works completely differently. We're like, work from home.
Yeah.
And it's always been that way because, we can't really afford to bring them into New York and, for the summer, and work from home. And you know what? If you're going to work 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours a day, just let us know. And everyone works on their projects. Some people don't, and some people, want to work at other things over the summer. It could be their golf game. It could be they got to help their parents out in a seasonal business. It could be, you got it. Anything, right?
Right.
You put the 6 hours in and work 4 hours at your parents. We got it. It's software. It's flexible. So these other companies canceled their intern programs, and we got a bunch. And they're a great team, and they're building great stuff, and they're learning, and they're saying things like, being a software engineer in the commercial marketplace is nothing like school. And we're training them to work how we work and kind of think how we think and address client problems how we think. And we're looking for spots to, hire them as full-time employees when they graduate. The other thing is, since we're remote, they get to work on their projects during the school year too. Might only be 2 hours a week because, a computer science curriculum is tough, but they continue to be connected to us. And I don't know. That's how my internship program works. I'm not going to tell Microsoft how to run theirs.
Well, yeah, and I think that the larger companies, they can take the best on paper, they can take the best candidates, but there are you know, and especially in California, a lot of those students happen to be either white or Chinese, in particular, and you know they have the best scores, they have the best, you know, kind of. Well, hey, they have the best scores coming out of school and the best grades and things like that, and they get to pick the best of the best. And the best of the best doesn't always, I guess, kind of encompass everyone, and especially Sri Lanka. I know that you said that your co-founder was from Sri Lanka, and yeah, it sounds like you're also doing a lot of work over there as well, and that seems to be benefiting you as well.
We believe in the global model, and you know, at our core, we're a little gritty, you know. Just to diverge for a second, I grew up in New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. You see these old mills on the rivers. Some of them are 100 years old, 200 years old, 300 years old. They're making cider or iron or pianos or whatever. And you realize engineers came and they built stuff to make money. And it wasn't always under the best conditions. But, you know, they solve problems. I don't know. Maybe it's a Brooklyn thing too. You know, it's like we're a little gritty and kind of down to earth.
Well, luckily, I don't think anyone has to break their back to you know, to kind of do DevOps, but they do have to bring, you know, an intelligence and a certain critical thinking skill to the table to certainly get it done. And so part of this conversation that as I said, over the years, we've had Intel on the show talking about their programs. We've had IBM on the show talking about the programs that they've set up in as early as grade school and running science fairs and things like that. We've had a lot of these companies that you've been talking about on the program, and we keep hearing about this pipeline thing. And I think that is the shift in the conversation that I'm enjoying a change in most, because this idea of a pipeline is falling out of favor. It's this idea that, you know, we would hire more. It's just they're not there. So we have to make these people. We have to, you know, curate these kids with this will to get into STEM, and then we'll hire them. As soon as they have the skills, we'll hire them. We'll make a pipeline. 10 years later, we'll be flush with eligible candidates of all different backgrounds. And I'm happy that you haven't said that once. You are bringing the approach that these people are out there. You know, you don't have to create them. You don't have to make them, shape them, mold them. They're there, and you just have to reach out and give them a chance.
Yeah, I guess a pitch. I don't have too much connection to this company. We just used their app. It's called Handshake. We found these interns on Handshake, which the college guys knew about. They put the internship opportunity out on Handshake, and people found it.
Very, very interesting. Let's see, Appalachian State University, is that Handshake? Well, I guess Handshake would associate or affiliate with multiple universities, so that's just one of them. So nice. Handshake. I gotcha. That's very interesting. I'll definitely have to take a look at that. That's thank you for turning me on to that. So with that being said, let's see. So going into another question here, how did you build a brand that supports diversity? You said that, you know, you have been in this field for quite a while now, and when it came time to start up a new one, you said this is something that we're going to take to heart, and diversity. So this has been a goal for you from the beginning. How did you foster that?
So I was in charge of global marketing at Cognizant, as well as other places. My job when Cognizant was just a little company, just a few people, was to build a brand. So it's not easy, and a lot of people don't want to do it this way, but a brand has to actually reflect what you actually do. You can't just make things up and do something else. You actually have to, you know, walk the walk. Your brand could be aspirational, but it has to reflect who you are, what you do, what you deliver to clients, and what you deliver to employees. And I'm very much, you know, a lean, agile guy. You know, the end user determines what the application looks like. You know, engineers are close to the user, and, you know, so meet user needs by walking the Gemba, going down and seeing how the supply chain works. But this is an IT services company, and my job is to make sure the employees and the engineers are well taken care of. So our little brand is about letting great engineers do great work, working with clients, delivering their needs, but providing a terrific opportunity for engineers to build really cool stuff. And, it's, not rocket ships and terrific games all the time. Sometimes it's mundane applications, but they come up with clever solutions, and I think they like doing that. So we determined that our goal in life at xOps, we weren't going to do like the easiest things. We weren't going to, be kind of mundane. We were going to accept really hard challenges and problems, but that we were going to ask people to respond to those challenges, but give them the resources to create solutions. So in a lot of ways, our brand required diversity and requires allowing people to gain satisfaction from their work, because that's how we deliver solutions to clients. So it kind of wasn't that hard to say xOps is a great place to work, and you'll be treated right, and we welcome you, because that's kind of what we wanted to do from the beginning and who we are. So I wanted our brand to reflect that, and we would do things when we talk about ourselves, when we on our website, when we write about ourselves, when we interact with clients. That level of respect is there from us and expected from the clients.
Gotcha. Very well said. And there was this question here that I probably should have asked earlier, but I really like the way this is worded. Speaking about your past positions and how how you've seen things operate in this field, what has been the structure and breakdown of race and gender in the work environment in your past positions, and were there any assumptions that have been made about them as well? Oh no, hopefully Larry can still hear me. It looks like he froze, and that's never a good thing. So, yeah, we're going to hope Larry steps back here in just a moment. Technical difficulties. They always happen when you don't want them to. So, there you go. Although I don't think I've ever met anyone that actually wants a technical difficulty. Boy, and to be fair, I did say the interview would be about half an hour, and looks like he might have taken me at face value and given me exactly half an hour. But everyone, I'm sure that Larry will be back here in just a moment. Everyone, if you are just tuning in, we have been talking to Mr. Larry Gordon. He is the CEO and co-founder of xOps, and we've been talking about what it means to be a DevOps and what it means to be a company in this, in this sector that is really embracing diversity. And as I said before, diversity seems to be, kind of a bit of a controversial issue, because I think people look at companies and their hiring practices, and they say, "Wow, they're going for diversity hires, or they're trying to hire minorities." And for some reason, they look at that and they say, wow, being inclusive means that I'm being excluded. And that is the main thrust of it. It's a very misguided way to kind of look at and approach this whole thing. I'm very happy that Larry gave us the time that he could. Ladies and gentlemen, we might step back to the interview as soon as he gives us a call. If not, though, I think we're going to go ahead and do computer and technology news. If you want to find out more about them, xOps.IT, xOps.IT. We'll have a link in the show notes over at Computer America. It should, everything should be working. Everything should be good to go, and show notes up after the program. So everyone, computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. And again, if Larry comes back, then we are certainly going to jump right back in it with him. But until then, computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. All right, everyone. So, this part of the show, this is where we cover all the different computer and technology news segments. It could be about new products or features or things like that. And I take that back. We are going to actually bring Larry back on right now. So hopefully this works swimmingly. And everyone, once again, I apologize for that, but hopefully we're all back and connected. Larry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Ben.
And I can hear you.
I don't know what happened.
I'll be honest. I thought, I said the interview would be about half an hour, and I thought you cut us off right at the half hour. And I was like, wow, he is punctual. That is impressive. But everyone, ignore everything I just said about computer technology news. We're going to go ahead and continue on with Larry Gordon, CEO and co-founder of xOps. And yeah, Larry, just before the disconnection, we're going to act like it never happened. I asked you this question about the breakdown of race and gender in your work environments in the past, and if there have been any assumptions, I'm assuming on those people who, kind of weren't the same as as many of the others in the building. So yeah, traditionally, what has been the breakdown?
I might be a really bad person to answer this because I grew up, in New York. I work for a New York-based software company, IBI. I went to work for Cognizant and Capgemini, both global companies. So in these companies, there was a huge diversity of people. The Indian companies in particular, I think the Indian companies are better about, women in technology and promotions and hiring than kind of more exclusively US companies. Capgemini, a global company. So people from all around the world, all types of backgrounds. And in New York, information builders, there were a lot of Russians and, people from all over the world, so I think I was a little spoiled in being part of organizations. I think consciously or unconsciously, that supported that. It just seems to be the way the world was in the companies I work for.
But at the time, did you know that you said you were being spoiled, but did you know that wasn't typical, or was that atypical? Or at the time were you just like, hey, this is how most organizations are run?
I thought that was how most organizations were run.
Okay. I gotcha. So yeah, but hey, and you of course saw the benefit of that, and I think a lot of other companies are coming around to that idea.
I will come closer to answering your question though. That when working with other companies and customers and partners that maybe were a little US based, that there was a culture of, we're the Silicon Valley guys and we're the smartest guys in the room. And this is how we do things. And we're engineers and we're right. And, get into our room or, don't bother.
Yeah.
And, it was interesting to kind of go to a different culture where the developers were a little bit more like, we want to collaborate.
Yeah, and of course, having that, kind of having that self-assurance, it's very attractive from like a client point of view, saying, "Don't worry, we have the best, the brightest. We are the number one. No one is smarter than us. We got all the answers." And you fall flat on your face when you can't deliver exactly like you promise. But I think that what you're doing now with having working closely with working closely with everyone is probably more important than just trying to sell everyone this fake sense of, I know everything. So, because, hey, just like you said, when it comes to agile software development, it's not all about having all the answers. It's about building something that your clients really need and being agile about it. So,
yeah, I think the world's changing.
Yeah, and probably for the better. It's not one size fits all. But at the same time, though, when I say it's not one size fits all, I see here that we have a question about Microsoft Azure Cloud and deploying to there. Obviously, here you have Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services, and Azure on your website. But it looks like is it that you prefer Azure, or what's the relationship there?
We're preferring Azure, and Microsoft is preferring us. They're helpful. They've been at this a while. They understand, what kind of support companies like mine need, and they're very professional about it. And the customers are asking for it because, like I said, we have a lot of mid-sized companies, and these companies are already Microsoft customers, and they maybe don't quite trust AWS with their data. And, Google is an engineering-driven company. Mm-hmm. They give you a documentation if you want a solution provided. Microsoft, along with us, will come and will swarm the problem, and we'll get that problem fixed. So customers are trusting Microsoft. The technology is great. The developers love coding in the Visual Basic .NET framework. Easy to learn, easy to use, as leading edge as anything, and security is very good. Security in Microsoft's a little different, and we work with banks.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of this figured out, but of course you're still growing. Only 3 years at this, I'm sure that you're going to go under many, many, many more changes here in the coming 3 years, especially with obviously COVID, everyone having to work collaboratively, not in giant campuses or giant office buildings, but hey, everyone, it's almost like the bigger guys were forced to adopt your model. So. And I just have to ask you, in these past couple of months, how's your work team holding up? How are you guys holding up?
One of the young engineers in Wisconsin got sick, fully recovered, but he was sick for 2 weeks.
Glad to hear.
Nobody else got sick. The guys in Sri Lanka have different lockdown situations than a lot of us. Here in the States, they were stricter at points, less strict at points. So we had to deal with that. Definitely the customers got shaken. Mm-hmm. But we've always worked remotely, either globally or some of us work from our homes and support clients. A lot of us went into New York and worked at client sites. That all ended, but that actually made life a lot easier for a lot of people. Some of the customers slowed down, but they've come back a lot. I'm really optimistic.
Yeah, it's just from our team here, and really just myself, and actually one other producer that went with me to CES in January. They had confirmed cases that about 150 people who flew into CES had it already, and I was one of the lucky people who shook a lot of hands and. Got this whole thing way back in January, and I'm happy that your employee pulled through, because it was a rough 2 weeks for me as well.
I'm glad you're better.
Yeah. Oh, me too. So with all that being said, I mean, it sounds like you have your team is set up really uniquely to tackle a lot of problems. And of course, if you continue on everything that we were just talking about with diversity and making sure that you have people of many, many different backgrounds and ideologies, be that ethnicity, LGBT, like you said, or people with disabilities, that's going to be huge, because I think at this point, technology, I mean, you mentioned that you worked with like the financial sectors and things like that. It's not just old white bankers. It's not just hotshot young Silicon Valley guys. Technology affects everyone. And hey, we're going to have to start adopting things that reflect that. So, everyone, we have been talking to the CEO and co-founder Larry Gordon of xOps, xOps.IT. Again, we'll have a link in the show notes. Larry, though, I want to offer you the last word. Is there anything that we didn't touch on? Anything that you'd like to mention before we say good day?
Oh, I think we covered plenty there, Ben. They were terrific. I loved being on your program.
Yeah, our pleasure. And of course, tell your son we said hi there in the background. But your interview was great. Everything came out perfectly. And hey, we'll be sure to have you back on in a couple months. See how you guys are doing and see what's changed. And of course, hey, always welcome on to the Computer America Show.
Thanks a lot.
All right, have a good one. Yep, and everyone, we're going to go ahead and do computer and technology news. In the meantime, everyone, Larry, have a great day. Bye, and here we go. So, everyone, let's try this again. So, computer and technology news, and this is brought to you by, well, Computer America. Here we go. All right, everyone. Okay, so this first one, and it's, hey, COVID-19. It's, everyone's going to be at home, and everyone is going to, not everyone's going to have a nice, quiet place to sit down, but, we definitely appreciate being there with your family and, hey, being able to take the time and give us the time. Hey, we love that people will join us here on Computer America. And ladies and gentlemen out there, if you're listening, if you have a particular company, product, idea, service that you want to hear from, feel free to email us live at computeramerica.com. Just drop us a suggestion and we will do our best to get them on because, hey, we have that power and we definitely enjoy wielding it. Yeah. So our first story that we're going to do is actually going to be this one, and I think it's a bit of a rehash. I honestly do think that this article, the point was proven a little bit ago, but I think the fact that it's a teenager, I think grabs more headlines. But this is from Quanta magazine talking about quantum computers, a topic that is very near and dear to Computer America's heart. But check this one out. This had to do with the idea of quantum supremacy. If you don't know about that, that's when the first time that a quantum computer is able to solve a problem that a traditional computer, ones that we use here today, are not able to solve. And whichever company was able to come up with a problem that could only be solved by a quantum computer and then solve that problem in a timely manner that a traditional computer could not do, because obviously you could code a quantum computer to do 2 + 2 and it would do that very, very fast. But then of course you pull out a calculator and you do 2 + 2 and it would also solve it very, very fast. The idea of a quantum computer is that, or quantum supremacy is, again, building that problem that can only be solved by a quantum computer. So, with all that being said, and having said quantum about 15 times, there was a point last year, I believe it was like last year or the year before, where Google had claimed that they had done it. They had taken the crown. They have claimed quantum supremacy because they solved a problem that in their labs, the quantum computer was able to solve it in a matter of days, whereas a traditional computer, it would have taken 10,000 years or something like that, some kind of ridiculous amount of time to solve it. And of course, that goes with permutations and just all that kind of thing. But about a day later, scientists from all over the world had to come together and say, they can claim it all they want. There's an inherent problem here. And the problem is that the way the question was formulated, the way it was set up, it was optimized for a quantum computer and kind of not optimized or unoptimized for a situation where, it was unoptimized for a situation where a traditional computer would try to run it and it would run horribly. And I recall that back then they said that just moving a couple things, just kind of rewriting the formula in a different way, rewriting the problem in a different way, and you could cut the computing time from like 10,000 years down to like 3 years. And don't get me wrong, 3 years was not feasible. You are not going to set up a computer to run for 3 years straight to solve a problem. But it's a vast improvement, like a 97% improvement or 99% improvement over a the way it was written before, which of course throws that into question. So with that being said, this article goes on to say that an 18-year-old Ewan Tang proved that ordinary computers can solve an important computing problem with performance potentially comparable to that of a quantum computer. In its most practical form, the recommendations problem relates to how services like Amazon and Netflix determine which products you might like to try. Computer scientists had considered it to be one of the best examples of a problem that's exponentially faster to solve on quantum computers. Well, they've stripped that validation away because, hey, the validation was this is the power of future computers. And yeah, they said this is it's no longer there thanks to this teenager. Saying that, and they have a quote here from the teenager from Tang saying, "I was hesitant because it seemed like a hard problem, and I looked at it, but it was the easiest problem he gave me." The recommendations problem is designed to give a recommendation for products that users like. Consider the case of Netflix. It knows what films you have watched. It knows all the millions of other people who have watched and what they like. Given this information, what are you likely to watch next? It's a very obvious problem. It's very easy to wrap your head around, but of course, answering it completely different. So they said that you can think of this data being arranged in a giant grid or a matrix with movies listed across the top. And with movies listed across the top, users listed down the side, and values at points on the grid quantifying whether or to what extent each user likes the film. A good algorithm could generate recommendations by quickly and accurately recognizing the similarities between movies and users and filling the blanks in the matrix. So with that being said, they have a quote here saying, "To my sense, it was one of the first examples in machine learning and big data where we showed quantum computers can do something that we still don't know how to do classically." And that's what they said about a computer scientist at the Research Institute. That seemed to me like an important T to cross to complete in this story. And yeah, they set to work in the fall of 2017, and Tang, after several months, struggled to prove that a fast classical algorithm was impossible. As time went on, Tang started to think that maybe such an algorithm was possible after all. And finally, Tang wrote to me saying, "I think there is a fast classical algorithm." And there you go. So it goes into a little bit more, and of course the paper was published recently, on how you kind of do this thing. But the paper is about the fruitful interplay between the study of quantum and classical algorithms. Ladies and gentlemen, the main point here, congratulations to Tang for kind of setting all this up and really putting in the work and showing this. But it's something that quantum computers, it's almost like, it's not even almost like, companies earn money by grabbing headlines and getting research funding for their research divisions in their companies. If Google can say, "Hey, we have the best quantum computers," more investors are going to look at Google and say, "They're the one. They're the one that we're going to throw our money behind and pursue the best product." So everyone is going to, or everyone in, I really do believe that the scientific arm of these companies truly believe that they are, taking things slow and measured and putting things into perspective. But the marketing side, it's their job to blow it out of proportion. It's their job to really hit home that they have the best, they're the best of the best, and so on and so forth. So there you have it. It's just another case of here's something only quantum computers can do. And turns out, not really. So I'm not saying that quantum computers are useless. I'm not saying that they don't have problems that only they can solve. I'm saying that from our conversations in the past with scientists who are working in this field, we're still a couple decades off of this technology really being utilized to its fullest potential. We are very, very good at the systems we are using today. So don't get ahead of yourselves. It's coming. It'll be here before you know it, but there's no reason to rush this whole thing. So there you go. Let's go ahead and continue on here. That was story number 1. Story number 2, ladies and gentlemen. We'll cover this one very quick. I think we'll try to do this in under a minute. Verizon's 5G network is tiny. Verizon's ads falsely implied it's nationwide. And again, same thing with quantum computers. I think that it's more of a situation of where, it's more of a situation where you're looking at the marketers getting ahead of the actual footwork that needs to go into this whole thing. And yeah, marketers have claimed that they have 5G across the whole thing, and I'm sure that they use some kind of outdated 4G LTE map to somehow try to imply that 5G was everywhere the 4G LTE was. Not the case, and yeah, marketers getting ahead of actual technology. So there you go. All right, so again, that was quick. How about this one? This one is less lies and more, hey, actual realistic kind of thing. Traditional hard drives, spinning hard drive platters, and HDDs. Well, hard disk drives. There you go. Western Digital releases a new 18 terabyte, 20 terabyte EAMR drives. Check that out. EAMR offers similar density gains to HAMR and MAMR with less exotic tech. And this is essentially just a giant traditional spinning magnetic hard drive. It's pretty cool. And you can even see an image of it here with, it's a Western Digital 18 terabyte gold drive. Shows 9 different platters and triple stage actuators so that they can read the data from multiple parts at the same time. So anyways, earlier this month, Western Digital announced the 18 terabyte CMR drives, as well as an upcoming 20 terabyte UltraStar SMR drive. These 9 disk platters are the largest individual hard drives widely available today. And don't get me wrong, we've seen some SSDs that go all the way up to 128 terabytes. There are bigger, but this one you can probably actually go out and purchase and not lose your house over it. So they said that Seagate's largest drives, like Western Digital, needed a new technology to overcome the magnetic recording trilemma. But Western Digital's EAMR, or Energy Assisted Magnetic Recording, is considerably less exotic than the Heat Assisted Magnetic Recording used by Seagate. That more conservative approach likely helped Western Digital beat its rival to market. Less testing, less development, and hey, it just kind of works. So they say that the maximum usable data density on a magnetic recording device is limited by 3 competing factors, saying that the magnetic coercivity, there we go, the strength of the magnetic field required to demagnetize a domain. So how strong can the magnet be without having to, destroy the entire hard drive? It must be high enough to prevent the separation of recorded grains from influencing one another, encrypting data. And they said that, the field strength of the write head must be high enough to overcome the coercivity of the medium. And finally, the size of the field generated by the write head must be small enough so as not to overwrite adjacent areas. So that magnetic head, how do you generate enough of a magnetic field to write the bits and without overwriting other ones next to it and of course reaching all over and blah blah blah? It's a pretty big problem. So in order to increase the amount of data stored in a single platter, you must use narrow fields. But this negatively influences the potential field strength, which in turn means that the smaller, weaker fields are unable to overcome medium that is sufficiently resistant to crosstalk between the recorded values. So the point is, scroll down here. They have they've done it, and they did it with some very, very clever engineering as opposed to completely new technology, which again allowed them to kind of do that today. So, and by the way, if you're wondering about prices, let's see, do they have price here? If I had to guess, traditionally, traditional hard drives like this are pretty, they're, and just trying to fill out some, let's see. Wow. I can't find where to purchase it. Let's see. Let's pretend we're in the US. And yeah, I'm trying to find a price for this thing. It's not, well, let's see. The 16 gig is, you're looking at anywhere from, what is that, $20,000 or something like that. The point is, it's probably going to be pretty expensive, but not as expensive as you would think. And I don't think it's $20,000. These things used to be, I would put this probably in the neighborhood of like $300 or $400, which for a 20 terabyte is probably a darn good deal. So there you go. Okay, everyone. Wow, I used a lot of time saying nothing. I apologize. So some of the other stories that we weren't able to get, in fact, if you want to talk about storage, hey, maybe you might want to talk to Microsoft. They are selling their new Microsoft Flight Simulator on 10 physical DVDs. Yes, they're getting a physical release in Europe. I guess that's like an accessibility kind of thing. You know, not everything can be just digital. And yeah, they said that it'll be about 130 euro, and it will give everyone access to aircraft and airports. And both will come on 10 DVDs, all packed together. Remember the good old days when you had to say insert disc 2 or insert disc 3 or the almighty, you know, flip the disc over? Well, now we're on 10 dual layer DVDs to give you 100 gigabytes of game data. It's pretty incredible. So everyone, a lot more stories that we didn't cover. Hey, maybe we'll have time to do it tomorrow. Everyone, thank you for joining us here on Computer America. I hope that you have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything. And hey, check out the show notes, check out the podcast, and check out the articles, reviews, social media, so on and so forth. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye, everyone.